More on all of this with Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. He's the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us. The FBI Director James Comey, in his testimony today, he said those killers were at least in part inspired by ISIS. What information have officials learned to come to that conclusion other than that Facebook posting made on the day of the attack when the wife pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the ISIS leader?
Well, I think probably there's a mixture of information that they're able to exploit from electronics, Wolf. Some that indicates they may have looked at other organizations and they may have made a rather late decision to proclaim allegiance to ISIS. But there are a ton of unanswered questions here. If, as the director stated earlier today, these two were radicalized but in communication with each other, even before they met, there's a profound question about why we didn't catch those kind of international communications, and if there were other plots, either that they were working on at the time or had been working on in the past with this neighbor. There are profound questions about why none of that came to our attention, too. So on the Intelligence Committee, we're going to be pouring through this to determine how we missed, what steps can be taken to improve our intelligence gathering, as well as what we do here at home to protect against these kind of attacks.
Is there any indication, Congressman, that this attack was actually ordered from overseas, or the two had some sort of guidance or financial assistance directly from ISIS?
I don't know that yet, Wolf. It sounds like from the director today, he was not aware of that yet. Obviously, this is something we're desperately eager to find out. Was this in any way directed by a foreign terrorist organization, or was this, as it might appear, a last-minute decision by the female shooter to align herself with al-Baghdadi? We're very interested in knowing just how long this relationship, if any, with ISIS may have gone on.
Saeed Farouk was allegedly planning another attack back in 2012. Has the FBI learned any more from the individuals he was communicating with and how he was actually communicating?
I don't know that, Wolf, and frankly, it's been a frustration for us on the Intelligence Committee that the FBI has not yet been more forthcoming with us. There's still a lot that we need to as overseers, but also the FBI, I'm sure, is still very much in the early stages of this investigation. They're trying to answer a lot of these questions, and I'm not sure how many answers they have at this point.
Do you know if he had an accomplice in that previous plot? If this friend Enrique Marquez, for example, was that accomplice?
I don't know, Wolf.
Because he's obviously now waived his Miranda rights, and he's talking about something that occurred back in 2012. Here's the question. If the husband and wife killers had been radicalized for years before they met, what does that say about the vetting process here in the United States?
Well, it says that we have a lot of flaws in it. We've started to repair some of those flaws by the legislation we've just taken up on visa waiver here in the House last night. But if, for example, the female shooter applied for this fiancé waiver, gave an incorrect address, wasn't even interviewed, and yet somehow made it through that process, and we're still trying to determine whether that interview took place, then that exposes some real weaknesses and vulnerabilities in our security practices in terms of our visa process.
Yeah, the husband, Saeed Farouk, a U.S.-born citizen, obviously, his wife, Tashfeen Malik, a Pakistani woman who came here on a fiancé visa, allowed to come into the United States because she was going to marry Saeed Farouk. Stand by for a moment, Congressman. I want to get into the whole area of encrypted communications. The FBI director says this is his big nightmare out there right now. Were these two terrorists using encrypted communications to communicate with some folks outside of the United States? We're following the breaking news. Sources now telling CNN that authorities now believe that Saeed Rizwan Farouk and his childhood friend and neighbor Enrique Marquez plotted an earlier attack back in 2012 that was abandoned. Marquez provided Farouk and his wife with some of the weapons they used to massacre 14 people. Marquez has told investigators he didn't know about the plans for the San Bernardino terror attack, and he has not been charged. We're back with the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. Congressman, the FBI Director, James Comey, confirmed today, this is pretty stunning, that there were 109 encrypted messages between that Garland, Texas terrorist tried to commit a terrorist act back in May of this year, and an overseas terrorists the morning before the attack. But Comey and other officials say they have no clue what those 109 messages contained. They can't get into those messages. Here's the question. Is it possible that radicalized individuals are sitting in the United States right now plotting and communicating about attacks using this encrypted cover, if you will?
Well, excuse me, Wolf, it is certainly possible that those encrypted communications are going on, and we are going to be very interested to determine, in this case in San Bernardino, whether that was an issue. At this point, I don't know that we can tell that, but we should be able to determine it, having seized some of the electronics. We're pretty good at being able to restore even smashed electronics. So that's a very real concern. And it's a concern not only for the intelligence community, but it's also very much of a present concern for the law enforcement community. There are all kinds of people engaged in much more garden variety crimes, some of them very violent here in the United States, where the devices they use are encrypted. So even with search warrants, you can't get into, for example, an iPhone to determine evidence of a kidnapping, an assault, a robbery, a rape, a murder. But also, as you can see, it's presenting a real blind spot to the intelligence community as ISIS and other organizations counsel their members to go dark by using these encrypted applications.
Is there as far as you know, and you're well briefed on all of this, Congressman, is there some specific plan that the FBI, other law enforcement intelligence agencies have right now to deal with this dilemma?
Well, there really isn't, and I think the intelligence community may have more resources to try to get at the problem and try to identify who's talking to whom and how to be able to listen to those conversations or gain access to them. But it's very difficult. This encryption is incredibly sophisticated. We've been having, I think, very productive, in-depth conversations between the intelligence community, law enforcement, and the technology sector about what can be done about it. But there really is no consensus. We're not even near a consensus. And I'll say this, that, there's a great deal of dimensions to this problem. You have the technological question about whether you could safely build in a door for law enforcement to go through to see these encrypted communications with a court order. So there's technological challenges involved. There are also privacy interests, not only at home but overseas, where people may use these encrypted communications for legitimate purposes to avoid the prying eyes of authoritarian regimes. And then finally, even if we had some kind of reform here at home to prevent these terrorist organizations simply using apps either that they develop themselves because the technology is widespread or overseas applications providers that are encrypted. So a lot of tough issues in trying to wrestle this going dark problem to the ground.
Congressman Adam Schiff of California, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
There's more